This looks like a car, but it's actually the best PC I've tried lately. Consider, it's extremely efficient in terms of how much energy you need for performance. It's quiet. Cooling is super important to its longevity. Its guts are mostly digital, so there are way fewer moving parts. And it even has excellent cable management. More on the BYD Atto3 in a bit, but one thing it doesn't do is run on Windows. If you need an activated version of Windows, here you go.
Sawa ka na ba sa unactivated Windows mo? Well, lucky you! Pinakabago mula sa cdkeyoffer.com. Windows 10 and Windows 11 activation codes. Legit, safe, at pinakamura. Madali lang umorder. Hanapin ang Windows version na gusto mo. Piliin ang preferred payment method. Wala pang 5 minutes, nagsiligi ka na para sa Windows mo. Marami na kaming natulungan.
Dati, sad and depressed ako. But now, I found the love of my life.
Dati, aimless and walang purpose ang life ko. But now, I'm a world-class Zumba instructor.
So, web developer ako and content creator for a YouTube channel. And ngayon, ganun pa rin ako pero activated na yung Windows ko.
Kaya kung naghahanap ka ng legit, mura, at original software,
Check out cdkeyoffer.com.
Check out cdkeyoffer.com.
Check out cdkeyoffer.com. This first part of the video is about EVs in general. If you're coming from an ICE or internal combustion engine, yung traditional na sasakyan, or even a hybrid, and are thinking about going for an EV, here are my thoughts from someone who is coming from that background. My EV experience was with the BYD Atto3, but for this first part, I'll be talking about features which can be found in EVs in general. So it should give you a ballpark idea on what the experience is like if you do shift to an EV. First, super practical, especially dito sa atin na mainit palagi. It's amazing to be able to run aircon even when the car is on and you're not wasting any gas, you're not polluting anything, you're not dumping out any gases. And the consumption is basically yung pinaka-minimum. It's only like 1 kilowatt at least on this BYD Atto3. Super comfortable for people who have to wait in the car, like dads waiting for their kids to finish school and nakatambay ka lang kasi walang waiting area yung school. And that same peace of mind extends to sitting in traffic. You're just simply wasting less resources when your car is idle if it's an EV. Second, the driving experience is eerie at first in a good way because it's so quiet. There's no engine to produce noise. I mean, there is an engine, but it doesn't burn or combust or explode anything to make you go. So basically, all of the sound is coming from the outside. Other cars, your tires on the road, extraneous things. When you accelerate, you expect to hear the engine work harder, but the vehicle simply goes faster without any noise, seemingly effortlessly. Third, I posted about range anxiety, about my taking the EV to Tagaytay, and to be honest, that was more of a joke because the trip was well within the range of the car. But during the actual drive, I did start to get nervous about making it, even though I did not come anywhere near exhausting the charge. Itong range anxiety is less about EVs, I think, but more about the experience we've had with our own devices in the past. We all have that one time in mind when our cell phone, our laptop, our camera, our lav mic, that one super annoying thing when you needed it, but the battery died on you. And we take those memories and apply them to yet another device that may die on you when you need it the most, an EV car. But just like for most of our day-to-day devices that rarely die on us during that exact moment of need, an EV will most likely accomplish most trips, especially within the city, just fine. Now let's talk about the Atto3 as a vehicle first, setting aside some of the fanciness which comes with being an EV. As a way for me to get from point A to point B, the Atto3 was very enjoyable and I really liked driving it. The driving experience was good, shocks handled well the sorry state of our roads and preserved the comfort of the driver and the passengers. Speed and handling are on point. It honestly felt like I was driving a smaller, nimbler vehicle. Hindi naman ako nabitin or nakulangan when I needed to accelerate. Hindi mabigat yung feeling of driving. The rear is roomy enough, at least for someone of my height, around 5'9". It fits a family of 4 just fine. There are some curious interior design choices. Hindi naman bad, but curious. Just figuring out the air vents is a mini IQ test. And then you have the guidelines for the side panels, or basically, instead of making the side panel full plastic, there are lines which keep objects inside the side panel. So it's kind of interesting. My kids enjoyed playing with the twang sound that they make when you flick the wires. They do their job. It's just not a regular automobile choice for the side panels that we're used to. There are some curious cost-cutting measures also, like there's no button on the passenger front side door to unlock the car. And that button is useful if you're a dad carrying a kid and you want to dump the kid in the front passenger seat. So you need to unlock that side first before going to the driver's side. You can use, of course, the key fob, but that takes time. You have to fish it out of your pocket. It eliminates the practicality of having these buttons on the actual door. The front passenger seat is also not electronically controlled. It's not motorized. So the lean back and the forward back motion of the seat itself, all of those are controlled by traditional levers. BYD is a Chinese brand, so there may be some lost in translation design choices. But overall, as a car, it's comfortable and I really enjoyed using it, both driving and experiencing it comfortably as a passenger. And of course, it's not just a car, it's an EV car. So sort of the next evolution of all of these vehicles that we're familiar with. And there were lots of bells and whistles, which I actually enjoyed. For example, it's really a seamless transition from the house to the car. It's just like you're stepping into another room of your house because everything just follows you around. You have your phone with you, you enter the car, the phone connects right away wirelessly, your music or your podcast show up right away, Waze turns on. It's a no-brainer movement from, okay, I'm about to leave my house, to I'm in the car and everything I need already gets pulled up on screen. And this is something very different even from cars that are just a few years old. We have a Mazda CX-8 which does connect via Bluetooth and which does have a screen which you can throw up all of that information, but it's far from seamless. Ang layo niya compared to the BYD Atto3, at least for the 3-year-old model which I have. And there were specific design choices that make that transition super easy. For example, the space right in front of the clutch stick, which you don't really use anymore since automatic na siya, but you know, the clutch stick is still there. And then the space right in front of that, that's usually where people dump their devices, their phones. In the Atto3, that is also a wireless charging pad. So you just put your phone there, it automatically starts charging. I didn't know that, but since intuitively, dun ko linalagay ko yung phone, dun ko nalaman na biglang nag-auto-charge na siya. I didn't even know my phone had auto-charging until I placed it there dun sa Atto3. So just one clear example of how the designers really thought about what do people bring into their car and how can we make that connection seamless to make everything more useful. And you can feel the conscious decisions that they took to eliminate all other unnecessary steps. For example, you step into the car, you turn it on. Most other cars, you would have to shift into drive. With the Atto3, you just need to step on the gas. The car understands that you're starting from a full stop, you're starting from a parked position. Hindi na kailangan to disengage the handbrake, to set it into drive. You literally just step on the gas pedal, or in this case, the electric or the go pedal, and off you go. There's also a super handy auto handbrake feature. So if you're in your traffic, you step on the foot brake, the car automatically goes into handbrake mode. There's no need to engage anything else. So literally, you're slowing down to a stop position in traffic, and once you come to a full stop, naka-auto handbrake ka na. And then to disengage that, again, wala ka ng ibang kinakalikot. You don't need to disengage the handbrake. You just step on the gas and you're off. Which made me realize just how many unnecessary steps there are in normal cars. It took a little getting used to because syempre sanay ako to pull up a physical handbrake and then to pull it down. It took a little while for me to trust the Atto3 na, okay, naka-handbrake ka talaga. Kung naka-incline tayo, hindi ka biglang magro-roll down the incline, magdi-disengage ng handbrake, anong timpla nung gas or nung go pedal so that I can disengage the handbrake and I will go. So there's a little transition, but once you get used to it, everything is just a lot more instantaneous, a lot faster, a lot more efficient. Further blurring the line between a traditional car and car as just another device is the gorgeous touchscreen that they have. I think this is a 15.6-inch screen, and it's beautiful. At first, I thought the screen was a gimmick. Yes, it's nice to have a big screen, but do I really need it? For ways I look at my phone, or the itsy-bitsy screen that I have in the Mazda CX-8 is good enough. But once you start using that really large, really bright, really detailed screen, it's hard to go back to anything else. Although, just a side note on screens, unfortunately, the immediate view of the driver is also a screen. So in a traditional car, those would be all of the dials that list your RPM, your gas indicator. So these are actual physical things that you see. And I think a good example of a beautiful kind of dashboard from the driver's side is my old Honda CRZ. Here in the Atto3 and with most EVs, you don't get anything physical, it's just a small screen. And I think that small screen detracts. It's a minus from the personality of the car. So from an information presentation perspective, yes, of course, the screen works. Although, for me, I think there's information overload. Like, it even has the tire pressure of the cars. It's kind of cool at first, but then on an everyday kind of basis, do you really need to know the tire pressure of your car? I mean, you might want to look at that once a week, but an everyday thing, is that really useful? At the very least, I hope that the brands, the EV brands, give you the option to customize the display right in front of you. I think that would really help with the customization and making the car feel your own. And also, just from a utilitarian perspective, getting information that feels important to the driver immediately in front of the driver. But the center console screen, beautiful on the Atto3 and super useful. I mentioned I really like the driving experience, and that's true. No performance issues with an EV. That said, there is one note I want to make about my specific driving experience. I don't know. Again, this is my first time with an EV. I don't know if this is something common to all EVs or just the Atto3 or just the way I drive. But I noticed that braking at very low speeds, for example, you're backing up into a parking spot or you are trying to inch your way in front of traffic. So, these very minute precision maneuvers that involve the brake. I noticed that the Atto3 can get very jerky. Baka sa timpla ko lang on the pedals, you're trying to figure out just how much you can go and you're trying to step on the brake. Not suddenly, but ease into it. The easing part is where the kind of jerking motion comes into play. I noticed that the effect is less noticeable, so it's better, less jerky, if you put the regenerative braking to high. Regenerative braking is where some of the motion of the wheels is translated back to the battery pack, so you're generating a little energy as you brake. If you set that setting to high, I've noticed that it's less jerky at these kind of braking at very low speeds. So this is an EV, just like any other device, it needs electricity, and just like any other device, you need to plug it in. When BYD dropped off the car with me, there was no specific instruction on how to charge it because none were necessary. Like, it is literally idiot-proof. Like, to be honest, if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. You plug in the charger into the car, and then you plug in the other end into your wall outlet, a normal wall outlet, no modification necessary. And there are indicators when it starts charging properly. Super straightforward. There's even a sound that it makes when it's charging. I don't know if this is an artificial sound that they just put in to reassure the user that yes, it is charging. I mean, there are other ways that you can check that it's driving, but I noticed when you plug it in, there is a sound. Or it could also be fans. I understand that cooling the battery pack is super important to the longevity of the batteries. So I don't know if the sound that I heard when I plugged in the charger is just artificial, direct feedback that yes, it's charging, or it also serves a practical function that this is cooling that's kicking in because you're pumping in more energy into the battery pack. Either way, it's a good thing because it reassures the user that, okay, I did something and something happened. May feedback siya, and it's a way to acknowledge that yes, it is charging properly. Charging time, of course, depends on how much charge there is when you stick the charger in, but For everyday use, you basically can leave it charging overnight, and then the next day you can go around anywhere within the metro, even outside of the metro, and you will have sufficient charge to make it throughout the day. Again, of course, your mileage, your distance might vary, but an overnight charge will set you up for most trips just fine. And that is the downside, or that is the concern when you buy an EV, especially dito sa atin. The charging infrastructure is very sparse. Wala pa talaga. It's not like there's a gas station. I mean, yung gas station for ICE, there's a gas station at every corner, sometimes 2 or 3 pa nga. Makakahanap ka ng gas kahit saan dito sa atin. For charging stations outside of the home, there are some malls, there are some gas stations na meron. Yung upside nun, a lot of those stations are direct current. So they charge the car a lot faster. Usually within 20 to 30 minutes, you can dump a lot of energy already into the battery of the car. Those are the very basics of handling, driving, maintaining, how to use an EV. At least how I experienced them with the Atto3. There are some other bells and whistles, some features which feel a little gimmicky. But in fairness, they do make the use of the car a lot easier. A good example is voice control. Hi, BYD. Close blind.
Okay, close the blind.
So with the Atto3, you can talk to it, and I don't use voice control at all for my computer, for my cell phone. I find it gimmicky. I find it a lot easier, more practical, just to input whatever I want directly into the device or the computer that I'm using. But in a car, obviously your hands are a bit occupied and your eyes are also occupied because they should be focused on the road. So voice control in a car is one of the best use cases for voice control. Hi BYD, increase aircon fan speed.
Okay, I'll increase the...
I thought it was a complete gimmick at first, but it was really useful. The Atto3 can understand you realistically well enough, siguro around 80 to 90% success rate. So there are some things which I preferred to do through voice control, even if I had the time and attention to do it manually on the touchscreen. You can also use voice control to control the lighting, the interior lighting of the car. Now, just like in computers, RGB is a gimmick. Like, it's purely aesthetic, it doesn't do anything. That said, my kids really enjoyed playing around with the lighting of the car in the dark. You can set the entire interior of the car to one color, or you can have one color in front, one color in the back. So my kids had a really good time. We were driving around, you know, getting from my house to the mall, and then my kids had a good time playing around with telling the car, oh, make the car purple, orange, red. Just like in computers, RGB is a gimmick, but it is a fun gimmick. I only had a couple of days with the Atto3, so by no means is this a long-term review. But for the time that I had the car, it was really enjoyable to use. It's amazing to think how much tech they crammed into this car. So the starting price is around 1.6 million. Not cheap by any means, but if you compare the prices now to comparable models of internal combustion engine cars, the tech that you're getting inside the car, the less maintenance. EVs require less maintenance than traditional cars because there are less moving parts. The savings that you have for gas, especially if you charge it from solar, like I do. I have solar panels on my wall, which I've talked about before. So if I'm charging the car during the day, that is free electricity from my point of view. I'm not paying Meralco to charge up the car. So there are a lot of cost savings inherent in using an EV. And it's kind of wild that, yeah, 1.6 is a lot of money. There are cheaper models, smaller models. But for what you're getting, for the size, for the range, for the tech inside the car, I think now that I got to try the Atto3, the wheels in my head are turning. Assuming that there's budget next year, my CRZ is 10 years old. I love it to bits, but it might be time to at least get a newer, more efficient car. I was thinking of an EV, to be honest. Mas na-solidify pa yon after getting to try the Atto3. And now, I'm seriously considering a BYD. So for the couple of days that I had it, it was a very impressive showcase of what EV cars are like now, what they can do, what you can expect. And yeah, that's genuinely something I would consider for my own personal use in the future. Really impressive tech, but aside from that, it's just a really impressive vehicle in general. It's able to put together all of those different tech parts. It does feel like a device at certain instances when you use it. But overall, as a vehicle to get you from point A to point B, in comfort, in convenience, in efficiency, I was really impressed with the BYD Atto3. Thanks for watching.